Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today we're going to be doing some spring cleanup here in the bonsai zone. The shoots on my Bougainvillea have grown really long and it needs pruning back. My Hibiscus bonsai is getting really cluttered up top and that needs some cleanup too. I have plenty of work to do indoors, but I'm going to start today's video by heading outdoors and I'll work on my Larch Bonsai forest. The forest floor has all the needles from last year and it needs cleaning up. I'm out in the greenhouse now with the larch forest and it seems to be the theme for today is cleaning up, messes. The larch forest is covered in the needles from last year and I didn't have to leave them on, I just did. Kind of offers a bit of protection for the moss over the winter. So now I can remove them. You could compost this in with your soil if you wanted a more organic soil with, lots of mycorrhiza. So I'm just picking it off and then I'll be getting the tweezers and also just kind of removing it until the forest is all cleaned up and looks green again. These trees were starting to bud out in the basement, so I brought them outside to try and keep them dormant. And it seems to have worked. All the buds on the trees have not really moved since I brought them out. They were showing some green at the ends of the buds and it still shows about the same amount. So they're not coming out into needles yet. They're staying nice and dormant out here. Because the nights are quite cold out here still, below freezing. And I keep the trees in the greenhouse here to kind of offer them some protection from the elements. But, in probably another month, they'll be out on the bench full time. Here's a close-up of some of the greener buds. So you can see the needles on the buds. They're just, coming out. But the cold weather out here definitely hasn't burned them or anything. They look the same as they did when I had the trees in the basement. Most of the trees, like the main tree here, these ones over here, aren't showing any green yet at all. So it's definitely stopped them in their tracks. They're not coming out of dormancy at all. So it's been very successful overwintering them in the basement and then bringing them back outside in spring. So last year on these trees, I was reducing the branches to sort of a single long branch and then just little fine branches coming off it. More like a real larch tree grows in nature. And it was very successful, although the trees didn't look that fancy because they had very little foliage on them. So this year I've noticed that those single branches have a lot of subdividing now. So I'll keep that subdividing very fine and kind of keep that a one long branch look to the trees. But along that one long branch I'll have a lot of little short branches coming off of it. Here's a view of some of the branches. So I kind of, reduced them down to a single main branch. And you can see, last year I grew a lot of branches off of the main branch. So that's good. That's what I want. I want a lot of, fine branches coming off. But I don't want them as long, so I'll reduce them back to the first pair of buds, keeping my one main long branch and my little fine branches coming off of it. I'll show you the larch tree in the backyard and you can see this effect on the branches. This is the larch tree right here, this one. The one over here, that's an oak tree, so ignore that. So yeah, I'll show you the branches on the larch tree and it'll give you an idea of the look I'm going for in my bonsai larches. Here's a shot of a typical larch branch right here. And you can see it kind of goes as a single branch all the way to the trunk. And then off of this single branch are all the little fine branches. And they're not that wide. They just come off, a little bit to each side, some on top. Not very many on the bottom. They're all mainly from the sides and the top. But they just kind of come off that branch. So it always looks like a single branch and then it has all these kind of almost a clump of finer branches along the main branch. So that's the style that I'm trying to get in my bonsai. I do enjoy picking all these needles off by hand. It gives you a good look at your forest, kind of You know, when you wash your car by hand, you get to see every little dent in your car, and you notice every little rust spot or imperfection. Well, it's the same with your bonsai trees. When you're doing something like this, a task that's just labor, it gives you a chance to look at your trees and your forest and study them, and you kind of come up with a plan of what you want to do. So it's not wasted time. And you know, you grow bonsai, it's your hobby, and it's not a hobby that, you know, you're trying to race to get things done as fast as possible. It's a hobby that allows you to do things like this, spend time with your trees, examine them, look at them. So, you know, some people would use a vacuum and clean up all these needles, or cover the surface of the soil in fall so the needles don't fall on top of their moss. But to me, bonsai isn't a hobby that, it's not to do as little as possible, and it's not to do it as quickly as possible. It's to spend time working on trees. And you know, whether it's wiring them or picking needles off the ground here, it's still work, and it's still fun. I also get to see the landscape green up as I work away at it, which is pretty cool. It's been a long time since I've seen this green moss, and the green moss is looking really good. It's a little long, it needs trimming, but I have a lot of landscaping plans for the forest this year. I want to do a lot of landscaping work in here, adding, you know, more details, more features, just to make it look more like a miniature forest. Give you more for your eye to explore. Yeah. So there'll be lots of fun stuff coming up on this forest this year. The trees in this forest have only been in this pot for just under a year now. So I'm still kind of developing the look of this landscape. And you know, there's a lot of features I want to change on it. Right now I think it's just maybe a little too boring. I think it needs more defined pathways and, you know, more changes to terrain, more rocks, just a more realistic appearance. So that'll all be coming up. Be really fun to work on this. And I haven't shown these trees since they've been in this pot. I showed the Avatar Grove last year, the Cedar Avatar Grove. So this year I'll show the larches and not the Avatar Grove. So I'll kind of alternate them every second year. That way I'm not showing the same trees every year at our club show. For a wet, cloudy day, it's not too bad here in the greenhouse. Kind of feels nice to be outside working away on your trees again. I think this is the first time I've worked on a tree outside since last fall. Well, it's kind of nice to be back out here. My moss balls are doing quite well back here, my moss bushes. They've survived another year, so that'll be their, I think, the 7th or 8th year of being in existence. So they just keep looking better every year. It's amazing. It's looking better already. I still have a long way to go, but nice to see all this green. I'm at the back of the forest now, and you can see that I have a lot of room back here for smaller trees. I've been, you know, trying to get some smaller larch trees, and so far it hasn't been working out yet. All the seedlings I've tried to grow from seed have just haven't germinated, and we were going to order some this year and they weren't available. See a bit of Irish moss back here. I'll have to pull that out. Nasty stuff. There. Gotta make sure you get all those roots out from that stuff. It spreads like the dickens. I'm making good progress around the back of the planting. I've got almost all the needles removed. Yeah, quite the wall of moss here. There's my moss bush, and it just kind of blends in with all the rest of the moss. I think they'll need trimming in future. I'm almost done cleaning up the larch forest. That's all I was going to do today on it, was just clean up the forest floor. And it's starting to get really cool out here. So it's time to go back inside and finish up the work on the tropical trees. It's the next day now, and as you can see, we got a bit of snow last night. I had put a few trees out on the bench last night just so they could get watered from the rain. And you can see they're kind of covered in snow. That's a cedar tree, or a Thuya occidentalis. Here's my willow tree. That's looking pretty snow covered too. Here's my larch tree. That's just a ball of snow. Kind of a nice silhouette though, isn't it? And these are the American elms, North American elms. A couple of cedars that I got really cheap because they were half dead. And then the rabbits chewed them further, but they'll work. And then in the greenhouse here is my larch forest that I was working on yesterday. It's kind of dark in here because it's all covered in snow. I'm just going to head outside and see what the larch trees look like with the snow on their branches, the full-size larch trees. I'm underneath the larch tree now, looking up at it. So it divides into a twin trunk up there. There's a branch structure. I'll see if I can get a shot of one of the branches from over here at the base, kind of looking down the branch. So here we are. There's two branches here. You can see, they start at the trunk of the tree and they go all the way out to the tips. And then all the sub-branching is just, a mess of smaller branches coming off of that main branch. Just like that. Just kind of a jumble of branches on top of the branch. And they come out anywhere. See, this one comes out the top of the branch and bends around. This one too, this one comes out the side. Very haphazard and random looking. Definitely no formal structure to the branches like you'd see in a bonsai tree. It's very random and chaotic. And I think if I can get that look in my bonsai, I'll be really, really happy. Just that sort of, that single branch coming from the trunk to all this chaotic growth coming off of that branch. Just a jumble of hanging and weeping growth. Yeah. The trees sure look beautiful with the snow on them. Wow. That's a Scots pine. There's a couple of spruces there. Heard the rooster. Here's the backyard. It looks pretty amazing. Wow. It always amazes me on these snowy days how amazing it looks in the backyard. Look at that shot of the sky there. Wow. I have a lot of work to do back here this year. All those American elms that just died have kind of all fallen down now. So I can get out the chainsaw and cut them all up for firewood. There's maybe one back there still remaining, but that's about it. It's dead too, but should be good dry firewood, that's for sure. Yeah, so this is springtime in Canada. Here's our Thuya trees in the backyard. They look nice with snow on them too. Kind of big clumps of snow. Yeah, it looks really Canadian, I guess is the word. This is the dogwood bush. Always looks amazing when it snows. Kind of got that red bark. Yeah, just amazing. I'm back to the bonsai area. The little outdoor studio has taken a bit of a beating this winter. All the cloth started falling down in the backdrop. Yeah, always something to do. My cedar hedge did well this year, except all the smaller trees that I had in between them. The rabbits chewed them. Even the main trees, you can see the lower branches. The rabbits chewed on those, but luckily it didn't chew through the main trunks. So they'll be okay. The matrix is covered in snow. I'll be putting that on the road again this spring. I always take it off the road in the winter. I kind of baby this car. Okay, time to head back to the house. I'm back in the plant room now. It's nice and warm in here. It's nice and bright. And I'm ready to start work on these trees. My pink pixie Bougainvillea bonsai here was last pruned almost exactly a month ago. And it's just grown like crazy again. You know, these shoots extending up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 12 sets of leaves. So it's quite overgrown. So I'm going to have to go in and reduce all these shoots down using directional pruning so the new shoot comes out in a desirable direction and give it a good trim. So here I go. I have to come up with a plan of where to start on the tree. So I think what I'll do is just, look at the longest shoots, where they come from, and prune it back. Just taking one at a time. So this would be a good point. Just prune it back here. Like that. Another one growing here. Now this shoot's a little weaker, so I'll leave it just a little longer. There's some good branch directions right here. Like that. There's one here. So you can see why I would defoliate this tree occasionally just to get the structure back in check. It's hard to see anything with this many leaves on a tree like this. You just can't see what's going on with all the branches. So every once in a while, it's necessary to defoliate the tree, check the structure, and then, let it grow again and just keep repeating clip and grow. But I'm not going to defoliate it now because it's growing really strongly and I've already defoliated not too long ago. Take that one off there. I wouldn't do defoliation any more than once a year, and even once a year is kind of being brave. A lot of people don't recommend defoliation. They would say every second year at the most. I'm pruning just in front of a downward facing leaf here, so it'll hopefully redirect that branch more horizontal. Same with this one, like that. There's some really wild shoots up top here. Again, always picking, a leaf that I want the new branch to grow in and pruning just above that. So I'll come in and there's some nice outward facing leaves here. Actually, back here is perfect. To there. One right here. Take the tip off that one. There's a strong shoot at the back here that I'll want to divide maybe here and here. Take it off there. Now there's some branches coming out here. Take it off right here. Some strong growth up here. So it looks like I'm pruning this Bougainvillea pretty well every month. So far anyway, it's just growing like crazy. Now, these lower branches, I want to keep them kind of horizontal if I can. you know, all those upright branches will reach for the sky, and then off of those will come more horizontal branches. Sort of a typical broom style tree. Take that off there. Yeah, it's really hard to see where all these branches are attached and where to prune to. I'll just take the tip off these weaker branches here. I know if I don't take the tip off the weaker branches, they'll just take over and grow really quickly. So this will kind of balance the vigor a bit. So when I come to prune it next, I won't be pruning one or two really long branches. Hopefully they'll all kind of grow equally. Okay, I think I'm going to have to go around the back of the tree now. There's lots of long shoots out the back here too. These gold-handled scissors, I just bought them at the surplus store. They were $2.50, and they do a pretty good job on these small trees. Okay, let's have a look at it from the front now. Here's the tree from a lower angle now. You might be able to see some of the branches from that lower angle shot underneath the canopy. If this were to go into a show, you could do a lot of cleanup of these leaves. All the leaves hanging down could be pruned off. You could lighten it all so you can see in at the branch structure. But for now, it's just in a growing phase. I just, want to develop this ramification. So when I do defoliate it, I have a lot of branch choices, and I can pick and choose my best ones to keep and remove the others. My Bougainvillea can go back on the bench now, and I'll get out my Hibiscus bonsai. I've got the Hibiscus bonsai out now, and when you look down from the top here, you can see what a chaotic mess it is. Here's a shot looking down at the top of the tree now. And you can see there's all those crisscrossed leaves and branches. So I want to sort those all out. My Hibiscus is a fairly large leaf bonsai. So I've got to keep all this branch structure in order. Otherwise, as I said, it just becomes like a chaotic looking mess. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to equalize the balance on the tree. I'm going to pinch back these longer shoots to kind of restore the balance of vigor on the top canopy. I'll start by giving the tree a sort of almost a basic profile prune. So getting rid of all the long shoots, I'll just reduce them back to a suitable set of leaves right here. And right here. Just take the tip off that one, like that. That one is okay, I think. I'm just taking the stronger shoots, cutting them back. So here's a really long shoot. I can take it back to here. A lot of these I'm just taking the tips off. I'll get a little more branching. It'll slow that growth down a bit. Kind of balance that vigor. That's what it's all about sometimes. Okay, that's not too bad there, I think. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of all those leaves that are growing kind of crossing on the inside here. There's a lot of leaves that are, fairly old. I don't think I defoliated this tree. I think I just took it back structurally quite hard. Not sure if I did defoliate it. I don't think I did. There's a lot of old leaves like this one here that's crossing right over top of a shoot that's trying to develop, blocking all its light. So that can be removed. So I'll just prune it off like that. And that gives more light to these developing branches. There's another older leaf here I can remove. You can tell they're older because they're a darker green color. All the newer leaves that are coming in are kind of a bright green. The older leaves are generally larger too. There's one here I can remove. One here. One here growing towards the inside. A couple on the inside here. It's kind of opening up the interior of the tree here a bit. It's a bit more light in there. Here's a really large old one here. You can see the size of that. So I'm trying to get light to all these little developing branches in here. Getting rid of a lot of the older leaves because they're getting replaced now with the new ones. So if you keep both, it just becomes too crowded and too congested. So I'll go way up top now. And there's the top view. And you can see all these branches in here. They were covered up with large leaves before. All these little shoots. So now you can see them, they can get light and they can grow and develop. I also want to come in today and clean up the base of the tree. The moss is starting to grow up the trunk. I can't see the surface roots, so I'll rake away some of the soil and we'll see what's happening with those. I'll use my mister and the toothbrush, spraying the trunk of the tree and giving it a brush to get rid of all that moss and algae near the surface so it doesn't look all green. And we'll see kind of what surface roots I have. It must be developing some kind of surface roots by now. It's been repotted quite a few times. Looks quite nice at the base of this tree. It's got some good surface roots here. It's got some good character to the tree. I'm pleased. Just scrub all that algae off too. You want to be able to see the nice bark color. You don't want your tree trunks to look green. Unless you're going for a real kind of rainforest look or something, but you know, most trees look good with their kind of natural bark color. Save the green for the leaves and the moss. I'll just comb away a bit of the soil now. It's a little bit high in the pot, and I'm not sure if I did that on purpose or if it's just as the roots fill the container, it starts to rise out of the pot a bit. I usually do, you know, when I repot my trees, I put a little extra soil on top, but I'm not sure if that was the case with this or not. I have to check an old video, I guess. For all of my trees, I do create a playlist for them. So if you want to see how a tree's progressing or check out previous videos of some of the trees, just go to the playlist tab on the main channel page, find the playlist for the tree you're looking for, and you'll see all the videos on that tree listed in order. So it's a good way to check on the progress of the tree or to look back to what I did, when I did it, and why I did it. I think that's about it. I'll just do a little bit of cleanup here and then we'll come back and look at the tree and see how it's doing. Here's the base of the tree now. It's looking pretty good. It's looking old and mature. And I can see, you know, in another 10, 15 years, it'll just look even better as some of these surface roots increase in thickness. Here's a view of the overall shape of the tree. It can change in future. I mean, if I decide this one branch is looking too long, I can always shorten it. There's plenty of shoots back here. And, you know, the beauty of this tree is not so much the structure of the tree, but when it's in flower, it looks fantastic. These great big orange flowers on it. So, hibiscus as a bonsai, especially these large leaved ones, it's not your traditional bonsai. You have to like the unusual to have one of these in your collection, I think. It's time now for today's update. Today's update is my Ficus microcarpa, the one that I'm growing in a avatar home tree type style. So coming up and then having a big flat canopy on it. I defoliated, pruned it back, and now all the new growth is coming in. So it's looking pretty good. I don't know if I'll ever get it to look like the home tree in the movie Avatar, but I'll keep trying and hopefully someday get that look to it. It'll be an interesting experiment. Let's go on to update number 2. My second update for today is my Ficus religiosa, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like in the new pot. This tree has been growing really strongly since I pruned it all back to a bare branch structure. It's filled in with its leaves again, and I'm tempted to repot it. I've got my pot picked out. I bought that at the bonsai guy, and I'm just wondering if it's strong enough to repot now, or should I wait till midsummer? I could probably get away with repotting it now, but maybe in another video. So all I can do is put the pot kind of inside the other pot. We can kind of get a feel for what it might look like. Okay, I can lift this up here. The Ficus religiosa is naturally a fairly large leaf tree. So I do want to grow it as a fairly large bonsai, and that's why I want to put it in a larger pot. This larger pot will eventually show off a nice radial root base on the surface of the soil, so it'll give it more room for that nice radial root base to grow and develop as the tree gets larger and larger. It's time now for viewers' picks. Razak from India has sent in pictures of his cycad bonsai and his Bougainvillea that's all in flower. Ron has sent in pictures of his very first bonsai, a willow leaf ficus. Wilson from Markham, Ontario, Canada has sent in pictures of his ficus bonsai and his juniper bonsai. Thanks everyone who sent in pictures. That's all for today. We did a little bit of spring cleanup before the snow hit. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.